Welcome back to another episode of the Holtcast. Jack Grimsey alongside Robert Lintott. As always, for 7500holt.com, bringing you the latest in Aston Villa news. How's it going, Robert?
It's going wonderfully. I just spent the past 2 hours reading James tweeting from the FBAs.
Yeah, I hope you were following along with the account this afternoon or this evening, I guess, Thursday evening, if you're listening or watching this in the future, obviously. But James Rushton represented us at the Football Blog Awards. We were nominated for Best Club Blog, and although we didn't win, we got something much, much better out of it, Robert.
If you haven't seen it, go to the website. I storified the whole thing. Long story short, James went to a racist fascist barber and started lying to the man, and also told him about some kid named Jake.
Yeah, could have had his throat slit really if he might have said the wrong thing. That was what his concern was. But I didn't know James had that in him. He just turned into a compulsive liar just out of nowhere for basically no reason.
He picked some random ass address somewhere, and it turns out to have been in the same building that this guy lived in, and had to tell him about his friend Jake.
Yeah, and then he told him he was working at the BBC on a documentary because it so happened the guy had told him he liked documentaries.
I'm working on a documentary on Boko Haram, so yeah, go read that on the site. It was a joy. And our congratulations should go out to the blog that beat us in the FBAs, another SB Nation blog, Barca Blaugranes. Blaugranes? Yeah, Blaugranes. There we go.
Yeah, Red Blues.
Yeah, there we go.
Blue Reds.
So they run an absolutely excellent blog over there covering, obviously, Barcelona. They do a fantastic job, and it's well-deserved. So our most sincere congratulations to them. Yeah, so that was nice. And at least we didn't get beaten by the Birmingham City blog that was in the mix.
Yeah, that's always nice. And it looks like James had a few drinks. So looks like it was a fun evening out for him and his girlfriend.
James sent us a picture of a table full of empty drinks, after which point the FBA's announcer said, "We're taking a break to get drinks," in the middle of the show. So
yeah, and then they tweeted, "We're going on a drinks break," and you responded, "Well, from our man there, it looks like the whole evening has been a massive drinks break."
And it seems to have been for everyone. So good work, FBAs. And thanks to everyone, of course, who voted for us. We really appreciate it. Even if we didn't win, it was really great to actually see everyone voting and see the support. That was greatly appreciated.
Yeah, getting a nomination is good, more than good enough for all of us at 7500. So we want to thank you guys for that. Thanks for listening, reading the site as always. And now that the international break is over, we hope you enjoyed our Dead Week content. Took a little time off from Villa, as Villa had taken a little time off from the Premier League. So got some interesting posts up there. Had a couple guest writers. It was nice to have those guys on.
It was a joy. I think all of us were tired of writing about Villa, although this was planned before Tim Sherwood was sacked. So with Rémi Garde, I think all of us got a recharge already, but now we should be back with full batteries and ready to go.
Yeah, and hopefully Villa are as well. So, we're going to be without Jordan Amavi. That's the big news that happened over the international break.
Doesn't it seem like every international break we get some sort of stupid injury?
Yeah, and we always talk about how much the international break sucks, how much we hate it, blah, blah, blah. Usually it's not a season-ending injury to your star left back who looks like he was really going to blossom under Garde, I thought, and so did tons of other people.
Yeah, absolutely. If you listen to Aston Villa Review, and if you don't, start. But if you listen to Aston Villa Review, they recorded, I think last week, just like a day or two before Amavi injured himself, and I happened to listen to it the day after he injured himself, and they couldn't stop talking about, he had some troubles against Manchester City, but he looked better. They couldn't stop talking about him and how he might grow, and it was really painful to listen to that talk after the injury happened.
Yeah, especially a French guy under French boss, it seems like almost half our team's French, but
yeah, absolutely. So it's a real blow, especially given the fact that the most likely replacement for Amavi is Kieran Richardson, because loan recalls are not an option at this point until at least January. Yeah,
just because of squad registration stuff. We did have a Twitter question about that, and it's probably going to be Kieran Richardson unless Luis Kinsella is preferred by Rémi Garde, which, I mean, it seems unlikely, but he could get a shot.
Yeah, I mean, there's unorthodox options. The straightforward option seems to be Kieran Richardson. Luis Kinsella makes some sense in a straightforward manner, and after that, you're looking at things like maybe Jose Angel Crespo, or maybe, and I highly doubt this, but maybe Thiago Elori, who apparently can play the entire back line. Although it's obviously not his strong suit.
He's out in the wilderness. We haven't seen him all year.
Yeah, exactly. The only reason I even consider that a possibility is the fact that we've got a brand new manager. So it's not the person who had him in the wilderness all year.
Yeah, it's a valid point.
Other than that, outside of that, in terms of injury coverage, maybe a Kieran Clark if Richardson is on and goes off injured. Maybe something along the lines of either Hutton or Bakuna at left back, and then the other one at right back, which is sort of horrifying to put either of them at left back. But I could see that happening.
Yeah, I was the other day asked by someone about if we could go with Richards there, and I thought, well, maybe, but I don't know how good his left foot is, and one of his best qualities is going forward, obviously. And I mean, if you're going to have him bombing on the left wing and he can't even put in the ball, there's not really too much of a point to that.
Yeah, his quality going forward is not the kind of going forward quality you'd want from someone out on the left wing. So it's not a help there. I mean, I'm just trying to think of what happens, because obviously you can't keep all of the backups possible on the bench. What if, we go with Kieran Richardson, which is the smart thing, and someone gets injured? Who do you put in there? Is it an Idrissa Gana? Is it a Scott Sinclair? Because he can play left wing, so maybe, I mean, that option sucks, but is that what you have to do in the middle of a match, maybe?
Yeah, it's definitely something that Garde's hand could be forced into doing. I'd prefer to see someone like Sanchez even just shifted over and as a limited defender, someone who's not going to be going forward.
Agreed. Absolutely.
Someone who can stop a guy.
Yeah, I would totally agree. Maybe a Sanchez, maybe a Westwood. I don't know. It really puts into a glaring perspective how thin Villa are at the left back position.
Yeah, and I mean it was a position of really considerable depth, especially starting the year. Obviously, that's why Joe Bennett and Ali Sissoko were loaned out. So We're just going to have to wait till January. Sissoko played under Garde at Lyon, and so maybe he gives him a call back from Porto. Maybe it's Joe Bennett coming back from Bournemouth, but we're just going to have to wait and see. And it's going to be Richardson for the time being, as unfortunate as that is.
Yeah. So the other alternative...
just an unlucky injury.
The other alternative comes from in the form of something else that someone asked us on Twitter. Do we go to 3 at the back and just sort of forsake the idea of a left back? Although if you do a 3 at the back, you're usually going to have someone in sort of like a wing back role. But do you think that's a possibility under Garde?
Yeah, I think so, and especially because we've seen Richardson used as a wide midfielder, and so just starting him off deployed a little bit higher up the pitch, it's not the worst idea. It comes down to if Garde is comfortable with the 3 central defenders, if they're working well as a unit, and then of course that's probably going to mean 2 defensive midfielders, and so maybe that means you go with Sanchez and Westwood, or Ghana and
Veretout.
Yeah, Veretout. I mean, I was just thinking Veretout maybe a little higher up the pitch, but
it's a really interesting question. It's my problem with the idea of 3 at the back right now is I've only got 2 center backs that I would trust in Richards and Clark.
Yeah, Yoro Sakura not back to full fitness yet. If he were, I would be a lot more comfortable with going 3 at the back, and I would think that's actually a pretty decent plan.
Yeah, absolutely. But at this point, I don't trust Lescott. I certainly don't trust Crespo. I'm not sure what it says about Crespo that I would rather see Lescott on.
Yeah, it almost makes you wish we didn't loan out Nathan Baker.
Yeah, it does. He'd be a heck of a lot better than Lescott and Crespo right now. But he wouldn't be getting regular time. I think in the long run, that's a smart play.
Exactly. And the same goes for Joe Bennett and even Sissoko. You need to get those wages off, and in the case of Bennett and Baker, you need to see them get playing time. So you made the right decision at the time. It's just unlucky that Amavi got hurt like he did.
Yep. I do think in hindsight, and again, I think, Sissoko and Bennett going off on loan was not something we criticized at the time, nor is this an issue that we really foresaw. So I'm not going full in on this was stupid. But in hindsight, I think keeping Sissoko would have been the better option because he doesn't have anything really left to prove. He doesn't need that extra playing time to mature. He could have been injury coverage.
Yeah, and I mean, I would have rather kept Sissoko and dumped Richardson, but maybe they knew they weren't going to be able to flog Richardson off somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. It was, in hindsight, it was horrible decision making. At the time, it was probably also horrible decision making, but at least for my part, I didn't see it at the time. I didn't know about anyone else.
Yeah, there's no way to know. I guess while we're still talking about the defense, I saw something today on Twitter that Hutton was voted as the best British right back.
By whom?
I don't know. It was just something that came up.
I mean, he's been having a much better year. At this point, I don't think of Alan Hutton as a liability, and I think of him almost as an asset, I think, at this point.
Yes, especially with a back four. Maybe if you go with those wing backs, 3 center backs, you'd rather see Bakuna out on that wing. But
maybe. The thing is, and I feel like I'm stealing again from Villa Review here, but as they pointed out, yeah, he loses possession a lot, and people get really angry about him over that. He almost never loses possession in a really dangerous area.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. It's better than, I don't know, someone like Amavi who had struggles early in the season. Partially it was because of the situations he was put in by Brad Guzan.
Yeah,
absolutely. Like specifically against Crystal Palace.
Yeah, it was. I don't know. God, he can't possibly be the best right back from Britain right now, can he?
No.
That just doesn't even begin to mentally compute.
No. I don't know where that came from, but
I can't. I'm just struggling to come up with a better alternative, but I'd be happy to say that if all of the right backs from Britain were dead, I still would have trouble calling him the best right back from Britain. I think he's become good this year. I think he's useful. God, he's not the best at anything.
No. Well, but if you need a hitman.
Yeah, he works for that. It's I guess.
Okay, here it's.
Oh, you found it. Good.
I found the article. It's on this website named Scotsman. According to Le Quip, the French news outlet.
Mm-hmm.
And he was in the Great Britain 11. So it was Wayne Rooney at center forward, Bale right wing, Sterling left wing. Okay. And then you look, it's Joe Hart in goal. And you go up, and it's Alan Hutton at right back.
When was this published?
Yesterday, Wednesday.
Wayne Rooney was the starting forward?
Yeah.
This whole thing is pants on head crazy.
I know. I'm tweeting it right now just so there's proof if you want to go look it up. I wasn't just making it up. It was something that I actually saw. So yeah.
Wow.
Anyways, the other thing I wanted to talk about from the international break was Jordan Ayew. He scored another goal for Ghana and another pretty good goal.
Yeah, absolutely. He looking very good. Absolutely phenomenal first touch on that goal he scored over the break.
Yeah, just put it in a spot only he was going to get to it, slammed it home.
Yeah, and on absolutely atrocious pitch conditions too.
Yeah, and I mean he's been looking a lot better at Villa now that he's gotten a chance again, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he's going to develop into something really special. His first touch, it even looked good against Manchester City. He's playing with more confidence. He's not stuck and trapped out on that wing there, and it's really benefiting him a lot.
Yeah, let's get into that City match. It was always going to be a tough match for him as the lone striker. You know, he's going to have to do a lot of the work for himself, just frankly because Villa had to focus on defense first.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And he did the work we needed. Villa didn't have a great final product on that match day, but it's tough to blame them. City were
Yeah, Man
having some
City,
troubles.
they're the league leaders. Manchester City are a really good team.
Yeah, absolutely. They were having some troubles on that day, but their defense was not amongst those troubles. Their defense was absolutely, totally locked down from the first whistle throughout that match.
Yeah, and actually a chance did come up from that corner, and I think that was amazing. Rudy just did.
One of the greatest corner sequences ever.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a second. Let's hold off on that. I think we can close our City talk with that because I think that was a joy to talk about. But that first half, I don't think you can say Villa looked like the better team, but Villa looked like an equal team. Would you buy that?
Yeah, I mean they showed that they deserve to be out there, that they still are a Premier League team, at least for the time being, and they looked up for it. They were, I mean, at Villa Park at home, full stadium, had the backing of the fans, and really came out and played pretty well, I thought.
Yeah, I'd argue that that half from Villa was the best half we've seen all year, despite the fact that we didn't get a lead or anything like that. I think it was the best we've seen them this year.
Yeah, and obviously it was technically equal to the second half since no goals scored, no goals conceded in either. But really, I mean, compared to the end of the second half when Villa were just hanging on for their lives, they looked a lot better.
Yeah, absolutely. And even when they were hanging on for their lives, I mean, there was a fair amount of luck involved there. The fact that Fabian Delph shot went just wide was hugely helpful. The fact that Raheem Sterling managed to put it right onto Brad Guzan's face was pretty helpful.
Yeah, and De Bruyne not being able to
finish.
Score from 2 feet away.
Yeah. That said, Villa, they looked like they had their backs to the wall. They never looked panicked. They didn't look disorganized, I didn't think.
No, it didn't look like they thought the house was on fire and were scrambling,
No, I mean, because you would expect something like
what
that.
we saw under Sherwood at the end of specifically the Leicester game.
Yeah, or maybe like Tottenham looked in that 10-minute span that Villa had against them a couple weeks ago. You never saw that
just
panic.
I think Garde has instilled maybe some more composure into the squad. I think players probably have a little more confidence now, especially after the result.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for heaven's sakes, even Charles Nzogbia came on and managed to put in a decent cross and looked composed and calm throughout the match, which, holy crap.
Yeah, that's interesting that Nzogbia did come on. We didn't see Jack Grealish, who was on the bench, stayed on the bench the whole match, but Nzogbia came on, and if he comes back into the squad and has a chance to win a place as long as he's performing okay, I have no problem with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Pick the best players. I really don't care who they are. I'm willing to throw away my past prejudices. I'm willing to go ahead and say that I was wrong if I was wrong. So please, just play well. That's all I care about.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's really what's important, is just hopefully a fresh start under the new manager, just hopefully that it's not too late.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned that Gested throw-in. Take us through that.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if that's something that happens if Villa aren't where they are in the table.
Yeah, no, I would agree. So Charles Nzogbia gets injured, and play continues. So finally, City kick it out. And then, as is traditional at that point, if the opposition kicks it out to help one of your injured players, you give the opposition back the ball. And Gested comes in for the throw and very, very clearly motions to Joe Hart to get the heck out of the way because he's going to throw it out for a goal kick.
Yeah, just throw it over the end line for a goal kick. I don't really think there's anything unsportsmanlike about that.
No, absolutely
it's not a show of poor sportsmanship.
They're still getting the ball back. And in fact, on the one hand, the reason Hart wanted it was because Villa were sort of out of position and they had a man out of position from the throw-in. So he
Which
has
kind of defeats the point of having good sportsmanship, and
yeah, absolutely. And so on that regard, City obviously wanted it there, but if you get a goal kick, you get to place it exactly where you want. You get to place your, you know what I mean. You can run up to it. You can have a prepared kick. You can be ready. You can have your players where you want them. There's nothing not to like. Well, so Justed throws it in as hard as he can, notices that Hart is going for it, so he charges after him, and Hart pulls a Guzan and just lets it go out of bounds.
Yeah, exactly. And I was going to say Hart's not the best goalkeeper with his feet. He's not exactly like Manuel Neuer out there, but
yeah, absolutely. And then even after, Justet had made it really clear, I'm throwing it out. And then all Hart had to do was control the ball at his feet because he's a freaking Premier League player. And then City's players got up in arms and started getting in the face of the Villa players.
Yeah, and I mean, it was a huge situation. It was a corner for Villa late in the match, still obviously scoreless. And then Justet almost scores from it.
I mean, that could have been amazing had Justet actually scored on that. That would have been absolutely absurd if he had pissed off everyone and then scored because of it. Oh my! I'm not sure we would have heard the end of it.
Yeah, probably they'd still be talking about it, and I think he would almost instantly become a Villa legend.
Yeah, absolutely. I wouldn't have a bad word for him for at least a week at that point.
Yeah, but I mean, even so, even with a draw, it was still a huge point.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's times when I look at it and I kind of go back and forth and I go, ugh, only a point. But then again, we expected 0. This was absolutely a 0-pointer all the way from the day the schedule came out. And we got a point from this. And it doesn't seem like much because we're so far behind. But it's a first step, and it builds confidence, and it's exactly what this team needed.
Yeah, it stopped a run of, 7 straight league losses?
Yeah, and I mean, the win would have been great. The win would have been lovely. And the fact that win was almost there because of Justed's header would have been cool, but whatever. We got a point. We got a point from a match we were supposed to get drubbed in.
Yeah, and didn't sink the goal difference any further than the current -10 that it's at.
Yeah, absolutely. First clean sheet since day one. First point since August. I mean, I'll take that well, not every single day. We need more than a point every day. But I'll take that against Manchester City every time. Yeah. Because remember, the last time we played Manchester City, Brad Guzan kicked the ball directly to his right and gave up an empty net goal.
Yeah, and that actually was much more of a winnable game. Villa were in good form, playing well, and showed a good attacking intent, and still almost came back for the point. But that just shows you, under Sherwood, there's no way that Villa get a point out of this match.
No, I totally agree. They would end up looking disorganized. Yeah. What do you think of Guzan's performance there? The gentleman over at Villa Review thought he had a pretty fine match. I was not that impressed with him.
I mean, he did enough to keep a clean sheet.
Yeah, and I mean that's fair.
Had a huge save, but
the goal he saved with his face is unquestionably you have to be in the right spot. But I mean, it was a matter of Sterling just happening to put it right at his face. The thing that really shocked me was not his saves and whatnot, because we know he's capable of those. It was still his distribution. His very first goal kick under Rémi Garde, he sent it out of bounds, for Christ's sakes.
Yeah, and his distribution obviously still leaves a lot to be desired. And like you mentioned, his shot-stopping ability, that's never been a question. Mm-hmm. But going forward, I think if we buy a goalkeeper in January, I'd be pretty happy. Not necessarily because you just need to replace Guzan, because you need to challenge him. You need to have someone who could legitimately replace you. Mark Bunn is not that guy. He's the guy that, if a really bad injury happens, okay, well, at least we have someone who is trained as a goalkeeper.
Instead of putting Gabby Agbonlahor in goal?
Oh, my God. He loves the most. Stick him in goal.
Well, no ball that he ever touches manages to find the back of the net, so if he can just get a hand on it, we're safe.
Oh, my God. That's a good point.
It's flawless logic.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I really think that keeper is still, if not our number one priority, at least in our top 2 priorities come January.
Yeah, and another one that's been mentioned is another striking option. Charlie Austin linked with Villa. £8 million would be the reported fee. he'd be free in the summer, but of course, if you're relegated, it does you no good. So
Yeah.
I mean, 8 million is perfectly acceptable to ban for a player like that.
Yeah, we were going to be happy with 15 million over the summer. Half a season for half of that seems perfectly fair to me.
Exactly.
Yeah, I would have no problem with 8 million for Charlie Austin. I'm still really holding out hope that now that we've got someone new, maybe Lieber Kozak gets a chance, and maybe he becomes that person who can be a target man alongside Ayew.
Yeah, and someone who can use his feet.
Yeah, absolutely. He's not as skilled with his head as is Gested, but as we've seen this year, Villa aren't that good at getting the ball to Gested's head.
And
So
especially without Amavi, who is
Mhm.
probably the best crosser in the squad.
Did Amavi have 2 assists to Gested this year?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, I mean, without that, I'm not sure what value Gested really has, other than wonderful throw-ins.
I mean, you like to have him on the bench as a guy you throw on at the end.
Yep, exactly. But he's not your starter.
Yeah.
And nor should he be.
Yeah, and it's good that Ayew is starting to look like he's going to come good. He's really, like we were saying earlier, improved from what we saw earlier in the year when he wasn't getting that much of a run out. He was getting time on the wing, not a chance to play centrally. But it's good that he's going to be the guy, and that at least one of the summer signings is performing well.
Yeah, absolutely. And Ghana still seems to be performing well.
Yeah, it's just he just hasn't been able to, I don't know, stay knock free or injury free. He wasn't even in the squad against City.
Yeah, Veretout had a nice sort of coming out there. He had a rough first 15 or 20 minutes.
Yeah, but he didn't get a chance under Sherwood. I definitely still maintain hope for Jordan Veretout, and I think he's going to get more of a run under Garde now.
Yeah. Speaking of Garde, do you think we see anything from Gardner?
I don't know. He should be recovering from that injury. It was, I think last I'd seen he was going to be ready middle of this month, but I haven't looked for a couple of weeks.
Yeah, he might be someone. The thing is, even in, I don't know. I think at this point he's probably number 5.
I mean, he got a good run as the punchline for about half your jokes on the midweek post.
Once I realized I could use that little formula, boom, I had all my jokes written.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I think he's probably the 5th choice in midfield if he's healthy. And Ghana did get a run out against City. He was in that lineup. It was him and Veretout and Sanchez.
Against Spurs, I'm sorry. You didn't make the trip to Spurs.
No, I just checked. I didn't want people getting angry at us.
Yeah.
But yeah, against Spurs.
Sorry, I'm not lying on purpose.
You might be. Come on, mate. What about this weekend's trip to Everton? Do Villa have a chance at getting anything out of this, do you think?
You have to think so, and I mean it's coming off the international break, so any momentum that was gained by the team in that good performance against City is probably lost. But that being said, not everyone went away on the international break and actually got to spend a lot more time under Garde, specifically players like Carlos Gil, who I think having the manager watch him in training for a couple weeks, that should be enough to cement him into the squad.
Boy, he looked great against City.
Yeah.
There was that one, I think it was in the first half, it might have been in the second half. There was one moment where he got a ball and just blew right past one of City's either defensive mids or defenders. And then he had 2 people to beat, and he needed to either be a little bit faster or a little bit stronger. If he had been stronger, he could have muscled his way through. If he had been faster, he could have just run around them. But he was so close to having a brilliant 50-yard one-on-one opportunity with the keeper. And there was nothing to fault him for. He put everything into it, and it was just beyond his ability. But it was a brilliant moment, and it was a nice little showing there. And I think he should, at this point, he's locked himself into first-team selection, I think.
Yeah, I've got to agree. And I mean, it's good to see things like this. Obviously, it's just kind of a sign of life from this Villa team.
Yeah, absolutely. It seems dour, but we're, 5 points off of the relegation spot? Is that what we're... Yeah, 5 points right now.
Yeah,
it seems like a whole hell of
five.
a lot because that's double our total. But, if you just fast forward a few games, thinking of changing someone's position by 5 points at the end of the season is, that's barely anything. So 5 points is pretty easy to pick up. It's something that's definitely doable. And like you said, seeing the signs of life is really encouraging.
Yeah, and just, I think, like we were saying, Hill absolutely has to be in that team because he's really the best creative outlet available.
Yep, absolutely.
And it's still interesting to see the Adama situation, especially if he does have that big contract, if he's going to get those appearances, but he hasn't really gotten too much of a run out either.
I do sort of wonder does he actually have that contract, or was that Tim Sherwood just spreading shit?
Yeah, it's hard to know, but regardless, I think you've got to prefer Sinclair to him. Sinclair has that experience of playing in, I don't know, in matches like this, like when Swansea came up in the Championship. Those kind of matches are really important to the club's future. If it's going to be a relegation battle for Villa, you got to have that leadership.
Yeah, absolutely. And if it's not a relegation battle for Villa, Rémi Garde should be up for Manager of the Year.
Oh, undoubtedly, just because you could even still say that Villa are sunk, and it's early, but you're not wrong.
Yeah, if we get to the point, if Villa have somehow managed to secure safety by April, Rémi Garde should be, given every plaudit possible. It's tough to see what exactly is going to happen based on one match. I'm pretty encouraged, but this is still a tough task. You're absolutely right. You could say we're sunk right now.
Yeah, it's kind of just guilty until proven innocent, almost, just because you're in such a bad position. But really, that's how it is.
Yeah, absolutely. Who on Everton puts the most fear into you?
It's got to be Lukaku. Romelu Lukaku is a fantastic striker. He's 7 goals and 4 assists, I think, in 12 games this year in the league, and still only 22 and physical specimen, but great touch as well.
Yeah, absolutely. He horrifies me. Yeah.
Sorry, but they also have a good midfield. Ross Barkley, good attacking talent, and Kevin Morales, Jared Deulofeu. He's another good winger. Really, they're not short of options, and solid defensively with John Stones. But Tim Howard. Lately, Tim Howard, past couple of years, there's a chance that he could make a mistake just as bad as Guzan.
Yeah, I would agree. It's, the U.S. goalkeeping situation has not been great lately.
Bill Hamid.
Remember who's coming back from injury, though? We might get to see the return of Tom Cleverley.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
2 matches in a row in which Villa have to play against someone who sort of snubbed them over the summer.
Yeah, who kind of also saved them last year, though. I think it was a really bad situation the way that Cleverley left, even worse than Delph, just because we should have been you had to know Delph was leaving. He didn't have a new contract in January, and it was expiring in the summer. Cleverley, his loan deal was going to expire. We weren't going to pay Manchester United a truckload of cash. And he seemed to fit in well at Villa, but apparently just used us as a stepping stone and went to Everton.
Yeah, and fair play to him. Although all of the interviews and everything he said afterwards did leave sort of a sour taste in my mouth. It seemed like he was leaving us for no reason in particular. And I honestly don't think Everton are that much of a step up from Villa at this point.
They've a little bit better of a squad. They're obviously in a much better league position, but they're not going to offer very much more cash. They're maybe going to get to the Europa League, maybe. But they're definitely not going to get to the Champions League.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's their upside is pretty much where Villa's upside was. I still stand by what I said at the beginning of the season, that managed and used properly, this was a team that, a Villa team that could have finished 9th or 8th, and that's about where I see Everton finishing.
Yeah, exactly. Probably just around the same ceiling level, I guess. But
yeah,
it's just frustrating though, really, more than anything.
Yep, absolutely. So 2 matches in a row that Villa might actually have to go against someone that saved and snubbed them last year, coming back from injury. If Cleverly plays, would you go and run to your betting app and put money on him scoring?
No, just because he doesn't really score. I mean, he did actually get a couple for Villa, but like at the end of the season, but including
against Everton.
Yeah, a fantastic goal against Everton. And but other than that,
yeah, I don't know. The curse of the former player sort of horrifies me.
Yeah, oh man, like you mentioned earlier, that one against Delph that went just whiskers wide. Luckily, his right foot is hot garbage, because that would have been devastating. Like, if you lose to City, whatever. If you lose to the Snake,
should take Simpson's Snake banner. Was flipping incredible.
Yeah, that was amazing.
Just absolutely wonderful work there on that banner. A+ all around. I don't really have much to add for Everton, because, again, I'm still not really sure what to be expecting from this team, since we've only seen 1 match under Garde, and now we've lost our left back.
Yeah, and I mean, it just worries me because of our recent history against Everton. Only 1 win in the last 9 matches against them, 4 losses, 4 draws. And like you said, it was in last May, that was the win.
Yeah. That said, I'd be happy with the draw here, wouldn't you?
Yeah, definitely. I think a point on the road almost every time out against a team that you could consider to be better than yours is a good result.
Yep, I would totally agree from there.
I mean, it's got to be a confidence builder if you can pick up a point, something to show for it, and just try to get that momentum going, keep it going. Because who do we have next? Watford?
Yeah. And there's a chance at 3 points. I believe it's Watford at home, in fact.
Yeah, it is. And that's the one we knew coming into this murderer's row of a stretch. That was the one that we absolutely had to have.
Yeah.
And I know personally, I was thinking, well, if Sherwood doesn't win that, he's gone. Luckily, he's already gone. So we don't have to worry about that.
Made that decision when we should have. So if you figure, and again, we know from past seasons that this isn't where we're aiming, because it's probably going to be a little bit lower, but 40 points, let's say that's Villa's goal. That's 1.25 points per match for the rest of the season. Does that strike you as totally inconceivable? Does 35 points seem like something that can happen?
It does, just because if you look at the fixtures that we have in December lining up against, and I don't have them all off the top of my head, but they're against teams that Villa really should be beating. And all it takes is you just have to get hot at the right time. And if you can go on that stretch, look at what Leicester did to pull themselves out of the relegation battle last year. And they've even kind of maintained that form into this year. They're much higher than they should be.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of those things that if Villa can get a few wins here and there, it'll suddenly just sort of work itself out. We're on 1 win right now. It's easy to forget that, or it's hard to forget that on the same hand. A few more here and there, though, and suddenly things are looking much rosier, because the teams from the Northeast are hot garbage right now. Leicester, like you said.
Yeah, like you were saying, Newcastle 10 points, twice as many as us. They're 17th, but you just think Villa win 2 in a row, Newcastle lose 2 in a row, we've jumped them.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Sunderland are horrible. Bournemouth are not.
Yeah, they're fading fast.
Yeah, Norwich, there's 6 points for Villa if the past is any. I mean, it's one of those things where there's enough bad teams that I think something can happen here. Stephen Chris over on Villa Review, again, this is why I try not to listen to them before we podcast. But as they were pointing out, it's not going to be as bad as last year where half the league could have possibly dropped. But there's 5 or 6 or 7 teams that are definitely in danger of dropping. So we only need to be better than 3.
Exactly. Yeah, you just have to be the shiniest turd, I guess.
Can that be the
American politics?
Yeah, can that be the name of the 2015-16 highlights DVD, The Shiniest Turd?
Yep, get it at the club shop. It's just
but
gone on sale.
Only if we finish 17th.
Yeah, 17th.
Yeah.
17th or bust.
That's our great goal anymore. I don't know.
Yeah,
I think things are.
I'd be thrilled with 7th if we finish there from this point,
Yep, absolutely. And I think we've got the right manager and the kind of person who could actually build something here. So God only knows. I hope we can actually make something out of this.
Yeah, so, I mean...
Oh, you've just got a Twitter question. Tyler Fisher wants to know if you're going to oversleep again and not make it to the bar. I assume that's directed at you.
Yeah, it is, because I actually slept in and missed the first half of the Manchester City match when it was live. I went back and watched it, but woke up at, what was it, 8:30, because it was at 7:30. I was like, I'm going to get up at 6 and go to the bar, and I didn't, but don't worry, I'll be there this week.
All right, that's good to know. We need a man in the Chicago Villains there. Is that the Chicago Villains bar?
Yeah, it is.
Nice. Cool. Send our love.
So, yeah. Yeah, it's a good time. But I think that's all we got. Anyways, not gonna do a prediction, I guess.
Nope.
But remember, we're still on iTunes, Stitcher, Blog Talk Radio. So if you have left us a review, thank you very much for that. And the Google Play Store?
Yep, we are on Google Play. I assume so. We were accepted 2.5 weeks ago, so we better be on there by now.
Yeah, you'd have to hope, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, the match is Saturday and 3 GMT, 10 Eastern. So remember, we'll have all the coverage for you at 7500tohold.com, of course. Are you going to be on Twitter, Robert?
I believe this will be me on Twitter this time. And then, yeah, because we're trying to alternate me, someone, me, someone, me, someone. So, yeah, I think this will be my weekend on Twitter.
All right, so, yeah, you'll get to see Robert's tweets. Remember, go back and read what James tweeted earlier today, because it's fantastic.
It'll make your day better, I promise.
It definitely will. So, till next time, for Robert Lintott, I'm Jack Grimsey. Thanks for listening to the Whole Cast.